Last week, no-frills carrier GoAir temporarily suspended some flights because its A320 neoplanes are facing frequent snags. Both the engine manufacturer Pratt & Whitney and aircraft maker Airbus SE expressed their inability to deliver engines and aircraft till 9th March, which means GoAir has no option but to truncate its operating fleet of planes. Given that even GoAir competitor Indigo Airlines is confronting the same problem, as many as 15% of passenger planes in India could be affected. The problem is not confined to the short term. Aviation experts say that frequent snags in Pratt & Whitney engines may not have easy and immediate fixes, which means the problem is not likely to go away anytime soon. GoAir, that operates an Airbus A320 fleet, has already carried out unplanned aircraft groundings in the last 4 weeks. In In-Depth today, we look at various issues that are affecting the aviation industry, both at home, in India and internationally, and their impact on air traffic and also the safety of air passengers. Indian domestic carriers Indigo and GoAir lines use the same type of engine made by Pratt & Whitney, which is susceptible to mid-flight shutdowns. After a dozen of mid-air glitch and in-flight shutdown of their aircraft in recent months, aviation regulator DGCA has asked them to modify the effective P&W engines by May 31st.
Two of India's leading airlines, Indigo and GoAir, are struggling with repeated snags in Pratt & Whitney engines on their fleet of Airbus 320 neo aircraft. In recent months, there have been more than a dozen mid-air glitches and in-flight shutdowns of GoAir and Indigo aircraft. Under scrutiny from the aviation regulator, both carriers had to temporarily ground some of their flights. The DGCA has directed them to replace the faulty engines of their A320 neo engines that account for a majority of their fleet. Out of Indigo's fleet of more than 250 planes, 96 are P&W engine-powered A320 neos, while GoAir operates 42 A320 neos. Both carriers have been given a deadline to modify older P&W engines on Airbus A320 neo aircraft by the 31st of May, after which the DGCA has threatened to ground all the affected planes.
New aircraft of A320, which has Pratt & Whitney engine, is suffering multiple failures, and ever since inception this problem is persisting. In fact, the frequent stalling of the aircraft, the gearbox problems, the turbine bed problems. There are a lot of modifications which are brought about by Pratt & Whitney, and some of the engines are modified also, but as yet the problem has not been very strongly or correctively fixed, because what we are observing is that the failures of the engines and the in-flight shutdowns both on Indigo and GoAir aircrafts is persisting. Every week we have at least one or two instances which are happening. So I think it's becoming a very serious proportion, and I think the government has issued directive to modify these engines as early as possible. They've given the deadline of 31st January.
As per the DGCA order, every time a new plane joins Indigo and GoAir's fleet, they must ground one A320 neo that has not had its engines modified. This means the airlines would not be able to add new flights until the issue of faulty engines is fixed. Until modifications are made to the faulty P&W engines, Indigo and GoAir planes have been permitted to fly on the condition that at least one of the two engines on the A320 neo aircraft has been modified. By the end of January, Indigo is expected to complete the modification of about 70% of the affected engines, while GoAir will need to replace 13 P&W engines.
So many incidents of engine failures and the aircraft returning back, that is it safe or not. Now I don't know whether 40% of the capacity is a reasonable argument in face of the possible accident, I'll say. I mean, this could happen. Now, of course, DGCA has said that one engine should be this particular engine and the other should be another type of engine. But these are all palliatives, which are this thing when a wrong thing happens, it just happens, and it's just a dangerous thing to do. But then at the same time, he feels that 40% of the capacity is involved in this.
However, on 23rd January this year, GoAir announced it is temporarily suspending some flights due to Airbus and Pratt & Whitney deferring delivery of planes and engines respectively. Earlier in November and December too, the airline had cancelled dozens of flights due to delay in aircraft deliveries and non-availability of engines. In just the past 4 weeks, the carrier has gone through unplanned grounding of aircraft which were supporting its current operational fleet. In December 2019, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency also warned about a potential dual-engine failure on the A320neo family of planes fitted with P&W engines. In an airworthiness report, the European agency said low-pressure turbine blades on some P&W engines on A320neo planes had low damage tolerance and could immediately fracture or develop cracks on impact. The aviation regulator warned that the condition, if not corrected, could lead to dual-engine in-flight shutdown, possibly resulting in reduced control of the aeroplane. It suggested airlines to replace at least one, if not both, P&W engines by the end of March. Aviation experts, however, say that frequent snags in Pratt & Whitney engines powering Airbus's SE A320neo planes may not have easy and immediate fixes, underscoring the need for stringent measures to address the issue that has stoked concerns about passenger safety. Experts say safety audit has to be of a very high level. Bureau Report, Rajasthan.
The engine crisis faced by two of India's top domestic air carriers is not new. Aircrafts operated by Indigo and GoAir are facing repeated snags since the induction of A320neo planes in 2016, which have Pratt & Whitney engines. These snags have caused large-scale flight disruptions and raised safety concerns, forcing the Indian aviation watchdog DGCA to order urgent modification of faulty engines. While these engines are known to be fuel efficient, the makers have failed to address several other issues in their engines.
The engine trouble with two of India's leading airlines is being described as the crisis which could get worse and severely affect the already struggling Indian aviation sector. The problems began in 2016 when Indigo and GoAir started inducting the A320neo aircraft into their fleet. Over the next 1.5 years, from March 2016 to September 2017, there were 69 cases of engine failure on these aircraft in Indigo alone. Aviation regulator DGCA was aware of the problem and held meetings to discuss the issue, in which P&W, manufacturer of the engines on the A320neos, also participated. Several planes were grounded until the engines could be replaced or fixed. In December 2018, in a written reply, the government informed the Lok Sabha that the DGCA has directed Indigo and GoAir to carry out one-time boroscopic inspection on all engines which have completed 1,000 hours within 1 week. DGCA also asked for frequent checks on these aircraft, including inspection of engines after every 1,000 hours instead of 1,500 hours, and repeat inspection every 500 hours. Following unsatisfactory inspection, the DGCA instructed the airline to operate the engine as per the recommendation by the manufacturers.
This is a jet engine new generation which is highly fuel efficient. It provides 20% more less fuel consumption than the current generation engines. A new technology, and basically in every technology the manufacturers work on high bypass ratio. The less fuel you use and the more air you can convert into the energy that gives you the thrust. So somewhere there is a mismatch, the torque mismatch and the power generation, and I think that is what is creating problem, and Usually whenever a new technology is tried or a new modification is brought about, sometimes we face teething problems, but this has been going on for last 3 years, and that is why it's a matter of serious concern.
But as Indigo's P&W engines on the A320neo planes continue to suffer plenty of snags, causing large-scale flight disruptions and raising safety concerns, DGCA in November last year ordered Indigo to replace its faulty Pratt & Whitney engines within 2 months, setting a deadline of January 31, 2020. DGCA observed that Indigo's efforts to modify the glitch-prone engines was not satisfactory and warned that the aircraft will be grounded if the engines are not modified. The deadline was extended to May 31st this year, with DGCA stressing that no Indigo Neo will be allowed to fly after that if it still has an unmodified P&W engine. India's other leading airline GoAir too is struggling with repeated snags in the Pratt & Whitney engines on their fleet of Airbus 320neo aircraft. Until the deadline is met, the regulator has asked Indigo and GoAir to replace at least one engine on 29 aircraft operating with both old engines, which has been done now.
They have been told to modify the engine, they have been told to get new engines, but it's taking time. I think the only thing that can happen is that if you insist that these engines cannot be used, then they will have to get some aircraft on wet lease. Wet lease meaning with or even dry lease for that matter, and immediately replace them till such time A320 Pratt & Whitney engines or other engines are put. Waiting till June, we are still in January, is a long time, and with the number of incidents taking place, it does seem very dangerous.
According to a latest report by the Times of India, 106 Indigo and 41 GoAir P&W powered A320neos have at least one modified engine each under their wings. So while the unmodified P&W engine may stall in flight, the modified one will ensure the aircraft lands safely. In Indigo's fleet currently, about 70 require an engine replacement. Indigo, in its latest statement, has confirmed that none of the Neo aircraft has both unmodified engines. That is, each aircraft either has both engines modified or at least one engine modified. The airline further informed that it is working with P&W makers to ensure that 100% of the Indigo Neo fleet will have modified engines within the DGCA's stipulated timelines. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
With this, we'll halt in for a quick breather, but we'll be back soon. Stay tuned with us. Welcome back. You're still with us on In Depth. Boeing may be setting its sights on space to be one of, if not the first, to carry humans back and forth. But it is currently facing almost insurmountable problems back here on Earth. Its 737 MAX continues to remain grounded, awaiting approval from aviation regulators after 2 crashes within 5 months. Boeing decided to not just rewrite the software for the MCA's flight control system, which is believed to have contributed to both MAX crashes, but the entire flight computer software. The US plane maker hopes the plane to return to service during mid-2020.
Boeing completing the successful first flight of its new model 777X jetliner. On Saturday, the 777X touched down at the historic Boeing field outside Seattle after a debut that began almost 4 hours earlier. These planes are scheduled to be available in 2021. The test came as the company's woes continue with its still grounded 737 MAX planes.
Yeah, we did all of the testing that we planned for the most part. We got through all the systems checks and even had time really to go on a little tour of Mount Rainier. So it went very well. Yeah.
If the 777X is certified by the US Federal Aviation Administration, it will be Boeing's first certification since software flaws caused 2 fatal 737 MAX crashes, prompting the US to ground those planes. The FAA has said it will make sure the aircraft is tested carefully to ensure its safety. This as Boeing's 737 aircraft continues to remain grounded. The company says the plane will return to service by mid-year and it will resume its production soon.
And I want to convey our absolute commitment to safety, our commitment to learning, our commitment to rebuilding the public's confidence in what we do, and to preventing accidents from like this from ever happening again.
Boeing has been in crisis since the 737 MAX crashes, which occurred within 5 months of each other, first in Indonesia in October 2018 and then in Ethiopia last March, killing 346 people. It is facing multiple investigations amid accusations that it sacrificed safety as it rushed to get its jets to customers. It is attempting to have the plane reapproved for flight. The grounding of the 737 MAX, that had been Boeing's best-selling plane, is estimated to have already cost Boeing more than $9 billion. So what was wrong with the Boeing 737's software that led to its grounding? Much has been blamed on MCAS software of the plane. MCAS, or the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, has one very specific purpose. When flying in manual mode, the MCAS helps to push the nose of the plane down to stabilize the jet. However, if the MCAS malfunctions, there is a procedure to cut the software out of the loop using a separate switch. If the switch is not flipped, the MCAS will keep nosing the plane down after 5 seconds. Boeing is now developing new software to replace MCAS. The 737 MAX was supposed to be Boeing's biggest achievement, but it has become its Waterloo instead. After being grounded in March 2019, a return to the skies date, initially thought to take only a few weeks, has stretched for months on end, with the company announcing a 737 MAX production halt in December. Several allegations of Boeing mishandling the plane's certification and post-crashes recertification have surfaced. Earlier this month, a trove of emails surfaced against Boeing, showing Boeing workers mocking the 737 MAX's design and bragging about fooling federal regulators. The company recently announced the 737 MAX will take to the skies again in mid-2020. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
To address the safety challenges in civil aviation sector across the world, a UN agency was formed in 1944 named the International Civil Aviation Organization. Currently, it has 193 members. The ICAO aims to develop and promote policies and standards for a safe, efficient, secure, economically sustainable and environmentally responsible civil aviation sector. It also analyzes and highlights high-risk areas and recommends measures to tackle them.
Safety is the top priority for aviation. To ensure this, a specialized agency of the United Nations, the International Civil Aviation Organization, was established in 1944 to promote safe and orderly development of international civil aviation. Delegates from 54 nations attended the International Civil Aviation Conference in Chicago in December 1944. 52 countries signed the landmark Chicago Convention that led to the formation of the ICAO and laid down procedures for global air safety. It currently has 193 members. The ICAO develops standards and recommended practices for global air navigation to ensure aviation safety, security, and efficiency. The ICAO developed the Global Aviation Safety Plan, or GASP, in 1997. It aims to continually reduce aviation-related fatalities and the risk of fatalities by implementing aviation safety plans at the regional and national levels. GASP is updated every 3 years. The draft 2020-2022 edition of GASP aims at aspirational safety goals of zero fatalities in commercial operations by 2030 and beyond. This aim is consistent with the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The Global Aviation Safety Plan is working to achieve this goal by promoting a positive safety culture, recognizing and promoting the aviation sector's responsibility for public safety, encouraging collaboration, teamwork and shared learning in the management of safety, protecting safety data, encouraging sharing and exchange of safety information, allocating resources to analyze hazards and address them, and proactively managing emerging safety issues.
Something where you cannot compromise on safety. Loss is secondary because primary is the safety of passengers and the aircraft and equipment. And unless the right solution has been brought about by Pratt & Whitney, you have to bring about the replacement of these engines, even if they may be less fuel efficient, at least for temporary measure. So whatever are the consequences in this, the engine failure or the manufacturing defect, I think to some extent the manufacturers will compensate the losses. But it would cause a lot of inconvenience to passengers, reduction in capacity, and more than that, the future induction of aircraft will suffer. So, but these are the issues which you have to address if this is the fleet problem which is persisting.
The ICAO has identified several high-risk occurrences that jeopardize air safety. These include controlled flight into terrain, which is an in-flight collision with terrain, water or obstacle without indication of loss of control. Loss of control in flight, mid-air collision, runway excursion, meaning an accident or incident which occurs during either the takeoff or landing phase. Runway incursion, which is an occurrence at an aerodrome involving the incorrect presence of an aircraft, vehicle or person on the runway. The ICAO requires all countries to work at regional levels to address these challenges. The role of the countries also includes addressing significant safety concerns as a priority, developing and implementing a national aviation safety plan, taking into account the regional aviation safety plan and GASP amid others. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.